Hi there, and thank you for taking time for yourself through this practice. I have a question. If you were a firefighter, what would you do when a fire breaks out? You'd try to put out the flames, right? In that moment, you wouldn't be asking things like, how did it start or who caused it? But you'd go right to the source to put it out. Well, emotional fires are similar. When we experience a burst of emotions that feel overwhelming and intense, particularly as children, we have the opportunity to one, stretch our emotional muscles, letting ourselves feel our feelings, and two, we can begin to develop our skills of self regulation. As parents or caregivers, we can help guide our children through these emotional experiences using self regulating tools. Anger, for example, can be a difficult feeling. That said, an angry child doesn't necessarily equate to a bad child or a child that isn't trying hard enough. Just like any other emotion, anger is normal and it's most often just the tip of the iceberg. The underlying source mostly consists of unmet needs. When children are still developing their communication skills, they may not know how to express their needs or navigate difficult emotions. And while we may be able to notice some of those needs and sensitivities, we will more than likely miss some as well. Children's behaviors often reflect how they're feeling inside, pretty similar to adults. And while behaviors can be observed from the outside, desires and emotional difficulties aren't as visible. So sometimes the anger inside manifests as particular behavior patterns on the outside, ones that we may code as inappropriate. But let's dig a little deeper here and ask ourselves some questions. What actually lies behind the behavior that we judge as inappropriate and code as unpleasant? Second, what does the child want to express and tell us through this behavior? What happens when there's a conflict between ourselves and our children? Or what happens when there's a disagreement between children themselves? Fourth, yes, the child is angry, but what lies behind this anger? And finally, we may not be able to know all the answers from the outside, but simply asking what lies behind this behavior could change our perspective completely. So, how can we support our children when they're throwing a tantrum or struggling with intense emotions? Well, during temper tantrums, the forebrain that manages children's executive skills goes completely offline. So, for that reason, they may experience difficulty expressing themselves. So, our main task during tantrums is to help them calm down, because learning does not occur during temper tantrums. So, when they're calm, we can then work together on self soothing skills we'd like them to gain. Let's think through some of the steps we can take. First, our primary responsibility is to keep our children safe. So we want to make sure they're not at risk of hurting themselves or others. So if, for example, your child ran close to the street or turned on the stove unsupervised, and they were having a difficult time with your redirection or intervention, you could say, I care about you, and it's my job to keep you safe. Second thing is to consider that we can make sure to let them feel their feelings by connecting with them. We can say things to validate their feelings like, I know you're having a hard time right now, and I'm here for you. By acknowledging their feelings, even if they seem disproportionate to the situation or silly to us, we invite them to see and acknowledge their own feelings so that they're better able to name their needs. We can do this without pushing them away, isolating them, or leaving them alone with their own emotions. Instead, we can match their emotional chaos with our own sense of calm. If we push them away or isolate them just because they're angry, children may begin to associate anger with something wrong or something that needs to stay hidden. Remember, we're trying to offer them skills to move through anger differently, not to suppress it altogether. Additionally, pushing them away cuts off that bond that children need in order to be able to learn to self-regulate. It's okay for children to fall apart now and again. After all, we do that as adults. And recovering from that, even if we struggle a bit, can help us form habits and tools to make that process easier and less painful for all involved.